Hello friends, today's lecture is special lecture symbolic expression, and we have Manisha Sharma with us in the studio as sign language expert, and the title of the lecture is post-COVID transformations in entertainment sector. On the earlier lecture on the same theme, we talked about that how the kind of changes which have come in the entertainment sector, especially television, cinema and the OTT network, after the times of COVID, because we saw that these kinds of changes, they were evident during the times of the pandemic, and after the pandemic also we find that these kinds of platforms, especially OTT, they became more popular, and the subscription of the OTT platforms increased during this time, because of which a number of changes they also came in the technological sector as well, because you need a stable internet connection to watch the programs on OTT, where we find that during the times of COVID, these kinds of companies which were dealing with such kind of technological change, they became more influential, and over a period of time their concerns also changed. Their focus was on the more and more subscriptions, so that their profits could also increase, and because of which we find that some kind of changes they have come in this particular kind of a sector. And apart from that, we have also seen that a lot of changes they have also come in the content as well, where because we find that on the OTT platform more focus is on the content, where many of the times we will not find that established stars are not working, rather good actors, actresses, they are working in the OTT platform, and because of which we see that the focus is on the content, and a lot of changes they have also come in terms of portrayal and representation of women as well, because if we see the mainstream films, we find that heroine, they have always been portrayed as secondary to the hero. But in the OTT platform, we find that women's role in that sense has changed. They are not providing only glamour, relief, respite and entertainment, but the way substantial roles they have been provided to them on the OTT platform, that could be seen in many films which are also women centric. They have also been made in the recent times. If you see Gangubai Kathiawadi in 2022 by Sanjay Leela Bhansali, or Dhakad in 2020, Sabash Mithu in 2022, Thappad in 2020, Panga in 2021, Chhapak in 2020, Paglet in 2021, and English Winglish in 2013. So we find that most of these films which were being made, especially after COVID as well, we find that they were narrating new kinds of stories. Many of the women script writers, they have entered the film industry, apart from the directors as well, and they are coming with new kind of themes. And with these new kind of themes, with new kind of content, not only the OTT platform but even the mainstream films, they have also benefited as well. And we see, when one is talking about the kind of changes post-COVID in terms of the entertainment sector, that how OTT is completely free of such kind of a bias in terms of portrayal of women, and it is largely seen to be an inclusive medium, and the beauty of the platform is the freedom and the transparency it offers in that sense. And the urban empowerment of women is also being reflected, and more women, they have entered the filmmaking business, and how this kind of a diversification has also happened in that sense, and their ideas are more diverse, and some kind of a paradigm shift is happening in the kind of content. And it is not just in terms of having a cast that is being led by women, but we find that the content which is being there, it is being driven by women in leading roles. And they are not in terms of the family dramas or the usual Saas Bahu range. Rather, the content has been shown in a manner where women, they have been able to do justice to the kind of characters which they have been doing on the screen. And we find that many of the established stars female stars of the earlier times. They are also working on the OTT platforms, whether Fame Game of Madhuri Dixit or Aranyak of Raveena Tandon and Maharani of Huma Qureshi. All of them, they are working in these kinds of new opportunities which are available to them. And when we see that how the research from Nielsen has given some kind of statistics that how despite the channels exhausting their bank of episodes, overall media consumption during the self-isolation period jumped by 60%. That was the period of the COVID. And how even the earlier serials like Ramayana, Mahabharat, Vyomkesh Bakshi, they were being retelecast by Doordarshan, and how they were being received by the masses during this time. And other channels, they also brought their earlier programs like Hum Panch, CID and Siya Ke Ram. So DD during this time saw a 650% growth in the viewership in 1 week and became the most watched channel for the 2 consecutive weeks. So the people, those who had this kind of a nostalgia of the programs which were being shown in 1980s, 90s, etc. And the people, those who have not seen such programs in those times, they were able to see them when they were being retelecast during this time. And some kind of concerns which have been raised with regard to that how we have to strike a kind of a balance between the artistic freedom and the censorship, because censorship on OTT has been an important concern, because it is a medium which is not being censored and too much freedom is there. And when there is no censorship, it would result in the display of the content which is not appropriate for children. These kinds of things, they are being talked about, and it may definitely have some kind of a harmful impact on the society as a whole as well. So there are people, those who in a way argue that if you are imposing restrictions in the form of the censorship, then they may lead to the restriction on the freedom of expression and narrow boundaries of creativity as well. And we find that when you have a lot of technology and these kinds of changes which are coming in the technology in the form of the internet, mobile, social networking sites, and you have hidden cameras, video clips, TikTok, all these kinds of things which are happening in the society, because of which there are a lot of concerns that whether any kind of a censorship should be there on the OTT platforms as well, because they are being accused of engaging in too much violence and bad language. And when talks about the idea of censorship, then we see that some kind of a potentiality in terms of reducing the hate speech in the society could be seen, and how the children, they could be protected from consuming the harmful content by in a way imposing the censorship. And we can also provide an added layer of security to countries' global image as well when we are engaging in the censorship of the various media channels which are there. And the people, those who reject it, they argue that it is some kind of a check on the freedom of expression, and it is also some kind of a check on the artistic liberty of the individuals as well. And we see that how films, they are being guided by different kinds of classification of censorship, where you have the U or the unrestricted public exhibition, which is suitable for all the age groups. And the films under this category should not upset the children over the 4 years. And the another category is UA, which is the parental guidance is required for them, and all the ages are admitted, but it is advised that children below 12, they should be accompanied by a parent, as theme or content may be considered intense or inappropriate for young children. Apart from that, you have adult or A category, which is for 18 years and above, and nobody below the age of 18 should watch a film in cinema with this rating. And S is the restricted one to any special class of persons, that film which is meant for a specialized audience such as doctors. But in OTT we find that such kind of restrictions, they are not there. Such kind of guidelines, they do not apply to the OTT platforms, and OTT platforms are only required to comply with the self-classification of content with the appropriate age classification. and the content descriptor for each content which is displayed on the OTT platforms. And we find that the films or the content which are first released on OTT and subsequently broadcasted on television will need to be in compliance with the Cable Television Network Regulation Act 1995 and the Cable Television Network Rules 1994. So we find that OTT platform does not have any kind of a censorship in that sense. Some kind of regulations or guidelines they are there, but they have to devise their own rules in that context, and it is not mandatory to procure the CBFC certification or for any film or content which is directly or first released on the OTT platform. And we find that even when there is no censorship for this medium, even in any content on the OTT platforms, if it contravenes the Article 19(2) of the Constitution, the government under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act and IT Blocking Rules 2009, that is the power to issue directions for blocking the public access of any information through any computer resource, has power to remove such content which is objectionable. And the courts, they have also interpreted the application of the Article 19(2) of the Constitution vis-a-vis censorship to include the restraints on such content which is against sovereignty, integrity and security of India, or is defamatory, in contempt of court, or leads to incitement of any offence. So these kinds of things which are there, and how there is some kind of a need to censor the OTT platforms has also been talked about among the people, those who are in a way talking about the censorship issues. And we find that the enactment of the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021, and how they provide for a 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism, and the level 1 includes the self-regulation, level 2 talks about the self-regulation via an independent self-regulating body, and third the one talks about comprising an interministerial committee supervision system. And we find that how when one is talking about the increase in some kind of subscriptions of the various OTT platforms, and how they are offering a plethora of entertainment options for the people in the lockdown and thereafter as well. And if you see the content and the range of the programs on these portals, they are considered to be far more superior to what is available on the regular TV as well. And we find that the film and the TV series which are being commissioned, especially by these OTT platforms, and then they are exclusively released on these platforms only. And it is considered to be a cheap and flexible subscription medium, where we find that a specific amount is being charged monthly, and we also see that a variety of video library is available on these platform for the viewers. And as I told you that how technology is very, very important in that sense in terms of watching programs on these platforms, and how the IT giants, they are adjusting their websites to allow their client access to cyber communication, as they are being forced by heavy reliance on internet during COVID-19. And some players, some of their paid content is free of cost, along with numerous options for online content. So it is also being done by some of the players, as we see that ZEE5 came up with an initiative, Be Calm, Be Entertained, and in this they provided the premium content accessible to consumers for free. And Disney Plus was also launched in India, collaborating with Hotstar, and acquired 80 lakh paid subscriptions. So we find that how the various companies, they are trying to win over the consumers and customers, and they are even allowing the premium content at the standard rates as well. And because of which we also see that many of the Indian stories, they are being screened on a global level, and how the writers, those who were writing stories or telling stories from a unique vantage point, they get the recognition they deserve, and know that their story can find its audience without limitations on the format or duration as well. So we find that writers are taking big creative swings and have ample opportunities to narrate a story about anything, and how this platform is providing the opportunity to bridge the cultures and people through the authentic and relatable stories, and how the audience is also receptive to such kind of stories that focus on women and on other themes as well. And as I told you, censorship is not there, so the issue or concern of censorship is also not there in that sense. And when you talk about the OTT platforms, when you talk about the use of too much of smartphones or the usage of laptops, etc., so we find that how children are also getting addicted to such kind of programs, and how they are adversely affected in emotional as well as physical health as well. So screen time is an important concern which is of negative connotation or negative value to the students and the young children, and how it also causes a lot of stress. And we also find that inactive behavior among children leads to obesity, sleep disorders, and addiction to these kinds of platforms, which is seen to be in the form of binge watching. And we find that various kinds of platforms, especially Netflix, they are especially offering channels for children as well. So they are offering the kid-friendly content, which is very Western-centric many a times and affect the children negatively. And we have also seen that OTT platforms, they lack control and gatekeeping, which is a high requirement for the locks and measures for children which are exposed to the OTT platforms. And the digital entertainment brought about changes in the consumer behavior as well, and it has become pervasive in consumers' daily life, and how consumers are adopting newer technologies, but they are facilitating entertainment at the next level as well. And digital technology, when one is talking about, is likely to modify the existing habits, and the data bandwidth can be a problem with many people who are using OTT platform, and the internet speed and its availability is crucial for easy access to digital entertainment. So we find that all these kinds of changes which are happening in the society at different levels because of the coming of the OTT platforms, because of the coming of the different kinds of technologies. So all of them, they are also bringing about a lot of social change as well, where we find that children, they are being allowed by their parents to use the laptops and the smartphones for a considerable longer period of time, and it is affecting them negatively in all manner. That how when children, they are being engaged in the technological sphere, they are also engaged in the entertainment, because of which we find that their studies are also suffering. And the impact of the online teaching during the times of the COVID, where we find that children, they were being taught in an online mode through the mobile phones or laptops by their teachers. And after the COVID pandemic, we find that children have taken to this medium, and many of them, they are now preferring that they should be taught in an online mode. So online classes by different tutors and different companies, they have also been started after the pandemic, and many students, thousands of them, they have become part of this online teaching. And we also have seen that the government has also facilitated this kind of teaching as well, where some kind of government portals are there, SWAYAM, etc., and MOOCs courses which are also available. So in that sense, we find that from the educational point of view, it is a good step that children, they have got this kind of an opportunity, that if they do not have much money, they do not have many resources, so they can enroll themselves in online courses. But the usage of the technology, if it is in a very considerable mode, when it is overused time and again, then it may pose a lot of challenge, it may pose a lot of health hazard to the students. And we also find that when these kinds of changes, they are happening in the society, then a lot of telecom players and the OTT, all of them, they are working well towards ensuring a perfect and the seamless experience when you have to upgrade the technology. And we also find that there is a lot of hype in internet infrastructure and improved quality of population of our nation, and more users, they are expected to join the digital consumption team in the coming future, and so many of them, they have already joined. So we require that the technology should be improved in that sense, that the internet infrastructure should be available to all of them at a reasonable price. Because not only in the framework of entertainment but also in the framework of education, we find that these kinds of changes they have come, and these changes, they will also stay in that sense, because we find that many times the teaching has also become blended, that not only offline mode but also online mode is also available, and meetings etc., they are also being conducted in both the modes. So it will require that the people, those who are in a way at the helm of affairs, those who are managing these kinds of things, not only in the entertainment sector but at the same time at the level of increasing or in a way developing the infrastructure, they have to look at these kinds of things as well. And we also see that when you talk about the growth of an industry, it will definitely depend upon the financial stability of the viewers and the economic health of the country as well. So focus should also be there from that point of view, that the development of a new digital era, including the creation of a better and more reliable mode of consumption, and also meeting the requirements of consumers, are going to add value to the development of the digital economy in the coming future. So we find that how, when you are talking about any kind of an industry, then we find that in that particular industry, if more and more subscriptions are to be secured by these companies, then the financial stability of the viewer will be an important component, because the consumers, they should have that kind of a money where they are able to purchase the subscription. And the economic health of the country is also very important from that point of view. And how, when one is talking about the requirements of the consumers, then the requirements of the consumers are to be kept in mind by these OTT platforms. And at the same time, the companies which are engaged in development of the infrastructure, they have to create that kind of an infrastructure that the consumers, they are able to, in a way, have all sorts of facilities in that context. And we have also seen that over a period of time, the format of the web series, storytelling, cast and theme, etc., all of them, they are different than the TV content, because of which we find that smartphones, they have become more popular, and all of them, even the young children, they are handling them, and all of them have access to these smartphones. And smartphones have been combined in that sense that they are not only phones, but they have every facility for them. They have become, in a way, an entertainment tool, where you have the OTT platforms available on your smartphones, apart from the social media channels which are available on them. And when you see that the various kinds of figures which have been given by the various companies, Deloitte, etc., that how the numbers of the internet users, they have been increasing, and over a period of time we'll find that by 2024 industry is expected to reach rupees 3 trillion at a growth rate of 9%. And we also have seen that some of the data which has been given by Spark and Viacom, that OTT services are focusing on the local markets, and that is why they're using the multiple strategies such as localization strategy, partnership strategy and content differentiation strategy to attract the local audience. So all these kinds of strategies, they have been used by the various companies. And we also see that because of such kind of tactics or such kind of ideas, we find that their subscriptions are also increasing. And we also see that the content of OTT is also available in high definition, because of which the quality of the audio and the video is very high. and how the audience can in a way adjust the audio video quality as per the internet speed. So in this way we find that all these OTT platforms, Hindi and English, not only content is available in Hindi and English, but it is also getting translated into the regional languages as well. So with this I'd like to end the discussion, that how some kind of a change which has come in the entertainment sector post-COVID because of not only in the coming of the OTT platforms, but at the same time the kind of changes which have come in the technology as well. Thank you very much.